Welcome to the Arrow McLaren Debrief post the Grand Prix of Long Beach, and I'm delighted to be joined by Felix Rosenqvist. They've left you in the lurch again, no Alexander Rossi and no Pato O'Ward, but you're back in Indianapolis. You've got a busy week ahead of you, but let's look back at Long Beach. It must be something special about racing around the streets of LA.
It is. It's always good to come back there. The weather wasn't really what we expect of California. I think it was one of the few times it's been a bad trade to go from Indiana to California weather-wise. But the sun came out on Sunday, so that was good. It was a bit warmer for the race. Good to be back on the street courses. We love it. It wasn't the most smooth weekend for us as a team or for me in general, but I got away with some points, and Alex and Pato had a tough day, so it was it's one of those coulda shouldas, but overall it was good for me to kind of get back in the championship a little bit after a tough start to the season.
Do you know what? IndyCar reminds me of junior racing, where you'd show up and there'd be sort of 35 cars, and it's actually really difficult to get the whole weekend together, and there's a real shift. There's a flavour of that over the last few years in IndyCar. It's hard to put weekends together, to put a championship together.
It is, and exactly as you say, it's like the junior categories. If you're not having a good day, you're P12, P14, and that's not much to write home about. But I think we're getting used to that. Like all of us as drivers, we're used to winning whatever we've done before IndyCar, winning multiple races a year, multiple pole positions, championships. And now it's like, even people who won the championship twice or three times, they'll have a weekend when they're like P12, and that's all they had, I finished P7 in the race. It wasn't, we had a bit more, but still, it was a pretty good race, but that's all we had because we qualified 10th. And I think we're just getting used to that fact that a top 10 is a pretty solid result at the end of the day.
Let's look at the free practice sessions. Free practice 1, pretty uneventful. Free practice 2, what was going on with that turn 5 curb? Because that was the big story, but you managed to escape any damage.
Yeah, they added a curb there. I think there was something with the IMSA series where they removed it and then they added it back, or I'm not sure. We weren't really told anything, and at least I didn't know anything when we started the session. And then there was immediately 2 cars in the wall. We were kind of lucky because we weren't really using that curb a lot, but some cars were putting the whole car over it, and the addition of that extra curb just launched the cars in the air. I think Islet and it was someone else, I don't remember, but that was a pretty big crash. So. Yeah, I think maybe a bit more communication would have been good in that regard. But that's IndyCar, man. It's always something thrown at you every session.
Expect the unexpected. Looking at qualifying, the Fast 12 was disrupted by Marcus Armstrong, the red flag. Did that affect you? It certainly affected others.
It did. I think you can say it affected everyone, but We kind of had, on my car, in the 6th car, we were really strong on, when we had a prep lap, and then the second lap was kind of our go lap, and we were on that second lap when the red flag came, and then it was a 1-lap shootout in the end. And some cars were able to improve on 1 lap, but we couldn't for some reason. It was like driving on ice when we couldn't get warm up the tires the way we wanted to. It affected us a little bit, but I think we also have to just get better at, that will happen. So that's a difference in the regulation this year when they're stopping the time in qualifying, and they will always give everyone a shot at a 1 lap. And that's something we have to learn as well to deal with, because that's going to happen in Detroit, Toronto, Nashville for sure. And it's just a different. I think it's exciting though. It's kind of cool for the fans to see that 1-lap sprint when it's 1 minute to go, and everything can still happen with 1 minute to go. And obviously it's stressful for us because we have to put everything in 1 lap, there's just no security. Even if you put in a mega lap, like the track is still improving, and people will have another shot at it. So I think it's cool. It's sporty and good for the fans.
Yeah, I think it's a really good change, because when the checker came out, you're like, boom, 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 3 went through, and you're like, oh, wow. And if you're on the wrong side of that coin, it's a bit of blow. So you started 10th. Talk us through that start, because Scott Dixon made a really good point. And when you watch it back, the front couple of rows were checking up. But further back, Pat, Joseph Newgarden, they were flying. They had a huge advantage on the cars in front of them. Did you feel that in 10th as well?
It's an interesting start at Long Beach, because you have the hairpin, which is super tight. It's really hard to go too wide there, even going slow, like 20 miles per hour, whatever. And then you have the start zone right after the hairpin. So normally the first 3-4 rows are side by side when the start goes. And the rest of it, like, if you're further back, you're like racing, even if you're not, like, you're just trying to keep up with the pack through the hairpin. So it's single file pretty closely after the first 3 rows. But the fact that you're like going flat out behind means that some guys will come like with a mega momentum, while the others are still waiting for the green. So it's something we talked about it in the drivers' meeting, and it's always a topic at Long Beach, because you have, in my opinion, you have enough of a straight to kind of delay the start and make sure all the rows get through, but then you have the problem that it's a big bunch of cars coming into turn 1 instead. And then you kind of have the Nashville situation where it's just like yellow flag on yellow flag on yellow flag. And it's just like a repeat of crashes. So on the straight tracks, you have to improvise, and maybe there's something better we can do in the future, but it's definitely an interesting start there.
Yeah, it looked that way. So you were one of the runners to start on the primaries. You were actually, in terms of the finishers, the second best primary finish, the primary starter, if that makes sense. I think just Will Power was ahead of you. Now, the safety car came out around lap 22, and that transpired to really scupper the primary runners, because you had to run that long alternate session in the middle, and it became a fuel race as well off the back of that. Exactly. The black starting on the blacks was kind of like gonna pay off right when that yellow came. The red guys were starting to like dag, and the blacks were still good, and it was kind of like start to reel them in, that was the plan. But everything kind of reset at that point. And I think at that point, it wasn't a good strategy to be on anymore, because you have to survive on a long stint on reds, like a full stint, which wasn't as good as the blacks. They were not terrible, but they wasn't as good. And then run blacks to the end, which everyone else did. So it turned out to be kind of it wasn't really that interesting, I'd say, especially with all the fuel saving. It was just kind of like looking at your number, hoping that someone ran out of fuel or ran out of tires. I think some guys fell off on the reds, but there wasn't a lot going on. And I think considering that, I was pretty happy with a P7. Like, there wasn't many guys moving up, but we moved up 3 spots and did some passes and pretty good pace. But still, like that's pretty much all we had on a day like that. There was more fuel saving than I thought there was going to be. Pelot did 32 laps in the middle stint, and he looked pretty comfortable there. So looking at the final stint, you thought that maybe some of the other Honda runners would be comfortable, but actually across the board, even Romain Grosjean in second, he couldn't use his push. He didn't use his push to pass that whole race, because and I think that was the same for a lot of people, just saving fuel.
Yeah, it was. And there seemed to be a little, the Hondas looked pretty strong on the fuel. I think there was like me and Power were the best Chevys. And that's something it's kind of been historically an issue for us at those kind of races. When it gets into like a very big fuel save, it seems like they're a bit more efficient, and we're normally a bit quicker when it's like flat out racing, or lots of the ovals were really strong as well. So over the season, it kind of it's very tight between the two engine manufacturers. But a race like that, it just seems like they can run a little bit longer, and yeah, it's something we're working on fixing. So I was actually using quite a lot of push to pass to like keep guys behind me on the straight, and then you would have to save for like the remainder of the lap. It was like the good old Formula E days coming back a bit there, just energy management. So yeah, it's quite fun actually when you have that. Like for the driver, it's pretty interesting, but I think for the fans, it's probably not the most fun thing to see. So, but yeah, I mean, we had the first 2 races of the year were amazing, and this one was still a good race. But it's kind of like in F1 sometimes you have amazing races, and then there's one race where it's like a normal race, and everyone's like, "Oh, this one so boring." But yeah, they'll come back, the exciting ones.
But I think it was good because it was a strategy race and a more exciting strategy race than we're used to at Long Beach, because it's a nailed on 2-stopper without too much fuel save, without that early stop. Going back to the early stop, that was brought on by the Wyoli tyres starting to drop off a cliff. And we've noticed that the lead car suffers less deg, and we saw that at St. Pete. But if you're in the pack, those Wyoli tyres, I mean, I think it was Scott McLaughlin this time around, that he just fell off a cliff. I mean, he was running around like 3 seconds, and there's no way he's done. If he's out of his fuel window or whatever, but you could really sense that drop-off was there. This is the second race for the Wyoli tyre. What did you learn in that sense?
Yeah, I think that's pretty normal when you have the softer compound. If you're like fighting with, if you have to defend and attack a lot at the same time, like you're going to run out of tires quicker. You also have less downforce when you follow someone. So the car is just sliding around on top of the surface way more, and it's just chewing up the tire. But I think they've been good, man. I think it's good that they're doing, something with sustainability. Firestone have been, they didn't have a lot of time to come up with this tire, and it's been working good. I don't think it's like, in my opinion, it's actually been better than the other reds that we used to have. So
it's
longer. It's like it seems as fast. The deg, I would say the deg feels a bit more consistent. Like most time we use it, it's like a fairly consistent trend. It's not like some guys deg a lot and some guys don't. It's more of a consistent trend across the board, which I think is a good sign, because it probably means that there's less like luck involved, or just, yeah. I feel like that's what Formula One does well as well. Like the tire kind of behave the same across the board, and it's like a consistency you can see there for the fans to kind of like figure out what's going on in the race and try to calculate, who's strong, who's not, and yeah, I think there should be some variety, and obviously some cars are always better than others, but I like the consistency and just the feeling of the tire when it degs. I think they've done a really good job with it.
Now, Felix, it was a special weekend in Long Beach, because not only there for the race, but launching the Triple Crown liveries as part of the 60th anniversary for McLaren Racing. Those 3 liveries look fantastic, and you're going to be running them at the Open Test this week as well.
Man, I'm so excited. That was it was funny when we had that reveal, because it was like early in the morning, and once I actually hadn't seen, I've seen a drawing, but I hadn't seen the actual car. And once we pulled off the covers, I was just smiling for like the next 5 hours. Obviously, I think I got the best looking car with the Monaco 84 livery. It's just, unbelievable. I mean, that just means so much to not only me, but everyone who's followed racing for, I think even young fans, they know the livery, and it's really cool as well from McLaren to do the Triple Crown thing. I think it's kind of like underrated how big of an achievement that is. It's the only team in the world who's done that, and I think it's cool to showcase that and celebrate that. And it's not only a historical thing; we're actually still, competing in various forms of motorsport, Formula E, Extreme E, F1, IndyCar, various forms of GT racing. And it's just super cool. I feel like every year we're coming up with something new, and this one this was by far the best.
Yeah, when you look back at the history and the brand, Zach said you didn't get to choose your livery. When did you find out which car you were going to be running?
I've known it for quite a while. I've been lurking around at the shop trying to like figure out what's going to happen, and everyone was like, "Yeah, I think you're locked into the good to the best one." I mean, all of them look amazing, but yeah, I'm happy I got that one, man.
Right, I know we're looking back, but just looking forwards, the races come very quickly over the next few weeks. You've got the Indy test as well this week. That's going to be live on Sky Sports F1 for all the IndyCar viewers over here. And then you'll be heading off to Barber. That's a physical place. First road course as well. What are your thoughts heading into Barber?
Oh man, it'll be fun. It's the first road course of the year. We haven't really been to a road course yet. We had a test day at Sebring, and that's it. You know, and we obviously had thermal back in February, which is, I don't know. It's not really a race track. You know, it's like a test track. But yeah, Barber will be the first time we're back, like sending it on high speed corners. You know, really leaning on the car, big G forces and all that. So I really miss that part. You know, the physicality. Yeah, it's a really cool track in general. It's kind of like it's like a Nürburgring that is shortened a lot, and it's the same kind of feeling. And then Indy testing, obviously, here Thursday and Friday. That's a huge deal. You know, there's a lot of running, and that's going to dictate a lot what's going to happen in the 500. You know, what you can come up with there, test plan. You know, different aero bits we're going to be trying. I think that's going to be a big thing. Yeah, exciting times. I feel like the season is kind of getting to the point where, yeah, the fruitation point.
The month of May. And off the back of 3 results where you've had a bit of bad luck, it's a great opportunity to build some championship momentum.
It is. I mean, I was talking with the guys yesterday, and it's like, I feel like the IndyCar is so competitive now, and the competitiveness has led to way more incidents, especially in the front. You know, you saw, you know, in Long Beach, St. Pete, Texas, you know, there's pretty big incidents happening with championship contenders. And it's just because it's so tight. You know, if you want to move up, you're going to have to put yourself in a very vulnerable spot, and that's going to lead to more crashes. And also, you know, qualifying is so tight. So good drivers are qualified way back every race, and they're going to have to take bigger risks to move forward. So I think actually for us, so having, you know, basically 2 DNFs to start the season, it's not going to be, you know, that bad. Like, it's not as bad as it would have been like 2018 or 2017 or something like that. Like, you can get away with it easier now. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. I feel like we can shrug it off and just continue, and we built some momentum now in Long Beach, and just, you know, keep digging, and we'll be back in the mix soon.
And the boss alluded to maybe talks around a 4th car for 2024. Did you hear that conversation take place in Long Beach?
I know he mentioned it at some point. I don't know if there's any, you know, reality to it right now. I know that, you know, that's been his ambition for quite a while, and, you know, he wants to add more cars. So yeah, if there's any reality to it, I don't know. But, you know, we have great partners. We have a super strong program set up here in the US now. You know, there's so many plans for the future, not only for, you know, the actual team, but like the shop, and you know, there's just always something new happening in our team. And I think, you know, kind of like talk of the town right now with our papaya shirts and jackets and everything. It's just like you see us everywhere now, which is super cool, because we used to be a pretty small team, and then now I feel like we're everywhere. So yeah, we're excited, and we'll see what happens next year. But yeah, hopefully that comes along.
Yeah, something exciting to look forward to. Well, Felix, as always, you've been a fabulous guest. We look forward to your progress. We look forward to talking to you soon. Have a great outing this week at Indy and also at Barber. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, man.